Hey everybody, I'm Rick Beato. Joining me today at the studio is none other than guitar legend Paul Gilbert. Paul is known for both his blistering speed and precision, along with his lyrical, singing, blues-influenced riffs and solos. From his groundbreaking work with Racer X to the chart-topping success of Mr. Big, Paul's influence on the guitar world is undeniable. Here's my interview. Paul, welcome.
Rick, I'm ready for my therapy session. Thanks for having me here. I hope you can cure me.
You're very welcome. Okay, I want to talk about your guitar first.
Right on.
Okay, so tell me about this guitar here.
It's a Ibanez PGM 1000 T.
Okay.
T stands for through, neck through body. It's a cream burst, although I just call it yellow now, but my initial idea was to have a faded, what started as white or creamish guitar and sat in the sun forever and eventually turned this kind of color. So you can see there's a slight difference between the cream in the middle and on the outside. And I've modified it with my slide magnet. It's got DiMarzio Air Classic pickups, which is to always sound good. Mm-hmm. And the volume knob's hidden away in the F-hole.
I noticed that.
The F-hole, the purpose of the F-holes...
That are painted on.
They're painted on.
Yeah.
And although I spent a large portion of my existence as a heavy metal musician, wanting to be a heavy metal musician, I wasn't always on board with some of the heavy metal aesthetic. And so when Strats got pointy, I thought, I wanted to have something that harkens back to, or is just wider in terms of stylistic possibility. And I thought, classical instruments and jazz instruments both have F-holes.
Right.
So if I just put some on there, even whether they function or not, right. At least when I look at it, it'll think like, well, maybe I could play a jazz chord or a classical line and the guitar will accept it.
So you used to play with a vibrato bar, whammy bar, but you have a fixed bridge now.
I do.
And you use really light strings, correct?
Yeah, well, I've graduated to 8.5.
Okay.
Probably just because, I love 8s, but we're tuning down a half step on the tour. So 8.5 turns out to be around the same tension.
Have you always played like-gauge strings?
I've used everything. Like the first Mr. Big album, I had 11 to 52 or something. I was trying to calm down my Ethel Merman vibrato.
Okay.
So with heavy strings, I just couldn't go, there's quite as much. And then I did my first gig with 11s, and it was like, well, enough of that. Lately, I just found I have better shows. And plus, so much of my playing is driven by the left-hand hammer-ons and pull-offs, and that's a lot easier to do. Plus, I get my action up, and for the action, I can get a clean slide playing on 8s. If the action's high and the strings are light, I can still burn.
Okay, so I saw you do a post on Instagram where you go between your slide and soloing, and it's amazing. Can you do a little bit of that?
Well, the trick is to train your second finger. Well, I'm a second-finger slide player.
Okay.
It's just the biggest finger.
Yeah.
And so to be able to get if I'm playing in E, and now I can get it there quick. To get it back, you got to make some kind of noise, a little pick scratch. Or I can't tell you. And then it's your thing. So,
I love that. And that magnet must be pretty strong to make it stick there.
Well, this is the live magnet.
Okay.
Where I want it to be as strong as possible. Because live, half my brain is gone. And I got to just make sure it sticks on there. At home, I might use a smaller one.
So how has your playing changed over the last 40 years or so?
That's a wonderful question.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it has to do with dealing with the sixth. I know you're a theory guy, so you know about these things.
The sixth, yes.
Of course, like any rock guitar player, learned pentatonic. That was blues. I had a couple. And then you if you've got an ear, and you play a couple songs that are a little blues-like, you learn how to bend the third. And once in a while, throw in the sweet major sixth. So that I kind of do that.
Right.
Then, heavy metal happened, the early 80s heavy metal, where a lot of the chord progressions are your Stairway to Heaven and variations of.
Yeah.
And so then you want to start emphasizing, that F. And so I got my muscle memory, or whatever that really is, it got so familiar with emphasizing that F that I was stuck there.
Right.
And it destroyed my blues playing, because you don't want to really, in any major blues, it's just not,
No.
you don't want to emphasize that. You might sneak past it, but it's not where you want to sit and go, yes, that's my, but if you're playing Crazy Train, then it's all right.
Yeah.
So I now I know that. I didn't know it then, and I'm we're playing a blues jam once in a while, and I'd be, I'm just going, why do I stink? And so the solution, plus I listen to Yngwie lessons, even the harmonic minor, well, that stuff. So my blues playing had just been destroyed, and I really wanted to get it back because I was a big Pat Travers fan.
Yeah.
And I even I got my Leslie pedal right here for the. I could go on and on, but Pat Travers and Pat Thrall would do these back and forth, like boom, boom, out goes the light. And they're doing all this kind of Dorian blues. With a lot of emphasis on the major third, and I was going to school right around then, so I started to know what intervals were, but I was still in scale mode, so I would build. I came up with this. This is very like me at GIT going. That's a Chopin. No, not Chopin. Aaron Copland. So that end phrase, that's a really nice phrase. It's very melodic. And I thought, well, let me steal that.
Yep.
So initially that's D major. And you could pick it, or it works with pull-off. And so I started harmonizing that, because that was the other thing I learned at GIT, was how to harmonize something up and down a scale.
Right.
So for that, I want to pick an easy one, like maybe do A minor, and and that works fine if you're playing Stairway to Heaven harmony.
Right.
But I wanted to start getting more of that. So I came up with Dorian blues and with a flat 5 in there, where I could say it was blues. So and started having that kind of thing. So that was that. It's a long story.
Yeah.
But that was sort of what was happening at GIT. I was starting to learn about scales, what intervals were, going through ear training classes, and at that point, a lot of the teachers, they were jazz teachers.
Who were the teachers at GIT then?
Oh, at that time, Keith Wyatt, who's now the blues teacher at the online school where I teach, and he was one of the best teachers. And then, some of the people aren't that well known, like Ron Eshtay, the fingerstyle jazz guy.
Yep.
And I loved listening to him play it. I could tell this is going to require too much of a time investment for me to get into this. But I'd learn one lick, or the two, or 1 6 2 5, and I'd just get that much, just so I could sort of dip my toe in. And but I'd sit there and listen and go, because I never heard jazz when I was a teenager or growing up. It wasn't, my parents had rock and classical. So, and then Frank Gambale was the sweeper. Yep. And I was very intimidated because he'd only play real book tunes. Right. And I didn't, a 2 chord, I only know really the 1 chord. I don't even know the 4 and the 5 yet. So that was just harmonically too intimidating for me to sit with him. And then it was also the funk teacher, Dwayne Dale.
Okay.
And I thought, like, you know, what do I want to do with funk? But he taught me the funk chord. And that was in all the Pat Travers songs. You know, you just put on your... you could do, you know, a lot of the Pat Travers stuff, or what is it? Getting Better's got that move between the James Brown and the Hendrix right next to each other.
Right.
So I never could figure out what that stuff was. And finally at GAT, all those doors started to be unlocked. And just sitting in the ear training class, and all the jazz students, you know, the kids that came up from Brazil and knew about the Brazilian, you know, they could play Girl from Ipanema. And, you know, the teacher would, like, turn his back, and he'd get us to spell that out. And I'd be going like, oh, you know, trying to hear the intervals where the, you know, all the jazz kids, yeah, that's, you know, major 9, we know that. So I'd really work at it in terms of ear training. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it. I mean, I worked on it because I having a new sound to chew on was so exciting. The GIT thing for me as a student, never really got fluent at reading, other than I got better at chord charts. You know, I could finally understand, like, why, when it says A7, what the 7 means. And that, which was nice. That was always a mystery before.
I'd like to take a second to talk to you about this channel. Believe it or not, 57% of the people that watch here regularly are not subscribed. So I would encourage you to hit the subscribe button now. This will help me get even more of my dream guests in the future. Thank you. So when did you really start to develop your style? Was it after you left GIT?
Well, style's funny, because I remember doing one of my first interviews. It was in Germany, and we were opening up for White Lion, mm-hmm. and the interviewer sat me down, and he goes like, Paul, why is it that Eddie Van Halen, Ingvar Malmsteen, William Campbell, and you know, getting all the V's and W's backwards, or in German style, and you know, Winnie Winston Denwasian, why is it that they have a style? Why is it you have no style? And, you know, English is a second language, so I'm trying to think, what does he really mean? You know, maybe he means I don't have a style. But it got me thinking, and I thought, I don't really want... This is... Well, let me start over. The answer is, I wanted to prove that I was a good person by being able to play with the level of control that a classical musician would have. You know, a suit-wearing, upstanding, grown-ups respects, you know, kind of musician. And I thought, if I can do that without all the electric guitar noise that often happens, which I really didn't mind. I mean, I have always loved Jimmy Page. I wouldn't change anything.
Right.
You know. Don't clean that up. It's good as it is. Mm-hmm. It gets the point across. It feels right. But I didn't want that to be me, because I wanted to make sure that you could, you know, you could put it under the microscope and go, look, every note is clean. And so, in a way, that personal mission of mine took away a lot of what would have been style. Everything is so in its right place that all the little things that come from struggle, and you just, you know, you want to get the sound, but you go like, screw it. I just want to, just let me dive in and try. And I wouldn't do that. If I couldn't play it perfectly, I wouldn't play it. And so, you know, that's my excuse for not having any style. And then, of course, style was never something I set out to have. I just wanted to play well. That was kind of it. I just wanted, you know, play with the things I liked. I mean, I copied everybody and still do. So I think that's where it ends up coming from. Is just, and in a way, my style is probably perpetually confused, mm-hmm. because I love Burt Bacharach just as much as I love Yngwie. Can I fit those two things together? I don't know. The last thing that I put on like heavy rotation is Loretta Lynn's early albums. And, you know, what's the song? or is it 5? The Woman of the World. And man, that melody, you know. I get chills and tears just thinking about how great she sings that. Woman of the world. And so that, and then next minute I'll be playing some Little Savage by Yngwie.
Right.
So this is why I've come to you for therapy. And I'm serious. I know that you've spent some time being a producer.
Right.
And my problem that I want to present to you is I can't listen to any of my music. I'll make a record, do my best, think I made good decisions, then I'll go like, I don't really want to listen to that. So my goal when I leave here is I want us to figure out what kind of album that I can make that I'll be able to actually listen to.
Maybe it's because you're always moving ahead and you've done that, and then once it's done, you want to just do something new.
That is correct. And I suppose we could just call it solved.
I mean, you went from Racer X into Mr. Big. Now that's stylistically a very different thing. Mr. Big having a massive...
Yeah, suddenly it's... Now I want you to see if you can guess where I got the very last part. It's coming. Here it is. This part. You know that's what that's from? Led Zeppelin, Down by the Seaside. People turned away.
Okay, so Paul, that hit came out in 1991, I believe.
The beginning of grunge.
The beginning of grunge.
We snuck in there right before we were forbidden to be successful.
Okay, so had it not come out, let's say that this had come out in 1992. Does that song probably still would have been a hit, though?
Well, who knows?
Yeah.
I just remember our manager. We had a big time manager. Herbie Herbert has managed Journey.
Yeah.
And he sat us down and said, like, guys, you have #1 hit. It's never going to happen to you again. Never. The one thing that I wish had happened for us is we never had a rock hit, at least in America.
Yeah.
And in Japan, we had all kinds of good hits. And actually, a little side note, I've discovered that by accident, I wrote a melody that's a textbook melodic minor scale.
Okay.
And it was one of our rock hits in Japan. Songs in E. And the bridge was your 4-chord in minor.
Yep.
And my melody is na 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 na.
Beautiful.
Na na na. But I couldn't believe it, 'cause I thought the only use of that in rock was elephant talk.
Why Japan? Why did rock bands like Mr. Big have success in Japan? Give me your theory on that.
My theory would be that at the time, the checklist was important in Japanese culture. So if you go like, oh, Mr. Big, great singer, check. Billy Sheehan on the bass, check. Paul Gilbert, Racer X, check. Pat Torpey, we like him too, check. And great songs, or songs we can sing along with, check. And so it was a lot of like, well, we have these elements, therefore, the equation says it must be a good band. And so it was kind of cerebral. Mm-hmm. And that's my guess. I remember seeing that not only in advertising for bands, but in advertising for instruments. This new guitar, check. You'd have the checklist of things it has, and that was just something that I noticed that seemed a little different than America, where it's just more like it's a new vibe and it makes the hair on your arm stand up.
I mean, you've toured in Japan a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Bands that had more guitar, that were more guitaristic.
Yeah.
We're still touring over Japan.
Yeah, because in America there's a real distinct. At least for my band.
Dividing for a lot of bands.
Yeah.
A lot of bands.
Yeah, 92, 93, and it's like, okay, you got to rethink what's going on. In Japan, we just did everything there. We're still selling out, multiple nights at Budokan, and also the hit, to be with you, opened up like Indonesia, Malaysia, and suddenly we're doing all these Southeast Asia shows, and you know, huge venue. We still play there and do great. So that it was a lot of travel. I'm jealous sometimes when I read about, you know, bands that were very successfully in America because they just got, you know, the bus pulls up to your house, you load your own amp in. You know, you can't bring your own amp when you're flying every day unless you're the Stones. So you know, I got used to like adapting to backline, you know, and just, you know, being jet lagged out of your mind as a standard procedure.
Did you find that you would also do a lot of clinics over there at that time period?
I mean, I did a fair amount.
Yeah.
I remember, like, of course, I remember the things that went horribly wrong.
Okay.
I was doing clinics in China, and there was a lot of the venues, for whatever reason, were discos.
Okay.
Now, in a disco, the PA system is faced the opposite direction than at a performance venue where there's a stage that has a band and an audience. A disco, the PA is faced at the stage because that's where the dancers are.
Right.
So you'd just get killed with volume, and then the audience would be outside going like, you know, can't hear it very well. But there was one where they had like a bar and dancers, like a troupe of uniformed, matching, glittery dancers, and they were waiting for me to finish so they could come do their thing. And I thought, how often do you have the opportunity to have a troupe of uniformed, glittery dancers that? And I thought, I'm going to ask them to join in on a song.
Okay.
And I even tried to choreograph it. And I didn't have anything danceable in my set. I was playing backing tracks at the time. So I started playing, I don't know what key Alphabet Street's in. That's not it, though. I'm going down, I'm going down. Let's try G. I'm going down to Alphabet Street. I'm going to crown the first girl that I meet. I'm gonna talk so sexy. They love me from my head to my feet. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I said, okay, they taught him that. And, you know, I came with a couple moves because I thought as long as we're doing the same thing, it'll look good. They didn't. They just did their own thing.
Okay.
and as much as I thought that was a dance song for me, it was just the most horrible thing I've ever created. And it was horribly embarrassing and just a huge train wreck. But, you know, you have to try. Nothing ventured.
Nothing gained.
Yeah.
I want to come back to your playing and how it's evolved. Mm-hmm. And things that you would have practiced then, things that you practice now. Like, for example, what are you practicing right now?
Now, it's a lot of knowing the fretboard for melody.
Okay.
So, because I have so many melodies in my head from growing up with, you know, AM hits, my parents' Beatles collection, and, you know, so there's a lot of melodies in here. And if you give me a kazoo, I get them right the first take.
Okay.
But on the guitar, I got to think about it more. And so I've started knowing, like, where my thirds are, roots on the B string. So, for example, like and I teach my students a lot. So I thought, you know, I remember, what's the Carpenters song? Why do birds suddenly appear every time they go near? You know, so I thought, okay, well, I know that, you know, I got it first take, bad falsetto, but the notes are right.
Yeah.
So okay, what you know, where is that? And you know, and there's two ways to play it too. I could just get the melody by itself, you know. And then what is it? Whew. And I want to get the little, you know, all the slides from underneath. Or you can, like, the thing I got from listening to Andy Timmons, who did that insane Sgt. Pepper record with everything on one guitar,
right,
is trying to, you know, start to, and of course, you know, play like Joe Pass or somebody, the real Cats. Not that Andy isn't, but, you know, you know, it would be, and then, you know, fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then maybe you take it up to the guitar range. Where would it be? So it takes me a second to think about it. I don't want that.
You think of a melody, and then you see if you can actually grab it on the first take.
Yeah, if I can visualize it and play it stylistically. I don't want to play it. That's the thing. The reason it took me so long to take on this melody mission was when I was a kid, there still existed genuine muzak.
Right.
In the elevators or it was the background music. Now if you go to background music, it's John Cougar or Foreigner or something. It's like classic rock.
Sure.
When I was a kid, it was Beatles songs played with all the soul
taken out
by studio musicians reading the chart.
Right.
And
they took it out on purpose too.
Okay, well, for whatever reason. But it made me believe that instrumentally performed melody was necessarily devoid of soul.
Right.
And I thought, well, don't ever do that because I want to have soul. And finally, from doing the G3 tour.
Yep.
And hearing Joe Satriani play every night, that sort of went like, well, he sounds good. The audience digs it. I kind of dig it too. And the more I hear it, the more I really dig it. And so that sort of made me think that it might just be okay to play a melody on guitar. But then doing it takes some doing because if you play not I wouldn't say a wrong note, but if you're burning it along, and you play like one unintentional, you play that instead of that. They're both in the scale,
right?
But maybe it wasn't exactly what you meant, or you don't even know what you meant because it's going by so quick. But that difference in a melody, that's a huge clam. A melody, you got to get it right.
Right.
You're really under the microscope because people know it, and you know it, and so it's really high pressure playing a melody.
Do you find that you are trying to find new ways to play the same thing, that you look for things like that?
Well, it's a guitar, so one of the things I found was a 3-note lick.
Okay.
Where, of course, if you have G, F sharp, E, and E minor. There's a bunch of different ways you could finger that. You have all in one string, or 2 notes in a string, and one, or even like 1 and 2 in the next one.
Yep.
And for slide, especially, to go like, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Where if I went, it's really hard on one string, but it's hard physically. Mm-hmm. For my little walnut of a brain, that's hard for the brain because it's counterintuitive. Because for the lowest note, I have to go up.
Right.
Because I'm going down. My brain is going, go there, but my hand's going, I can't go that far. I'm going to mess it up. But if I go up, my hands will get it right. So the song that really got me to work on that was Long Live Rock and Roll by Dio. I did it on my Dio record.
Yeah, your new record.
And the end of a dream, well, you know what I mean. And that you have to come on, because again, if you play that, just I don't know why I put it that way. Yeah, it just.
No.
I can always tell by my face if something's working or not. If it's like, am I happy? But if I'm going, then it's like, oh, right on. You keep that one.
When you do a record like your Dio record, how do you decide what you're going to play? What do you look for in a song when you're going to cover it? Tell me about your process for that.
Well, the Dio record is very studio record, so I can kind of do anything.
Yeah.
Because I can overdub forever. I can have the rhythm be one track and the solo be another track. Where, like, the thing that I was inspired to do from Andy Timmons, where you try to, like, juggle both parts, that will work for some songs, at least within my level of ability. So, for example, live lately, I've been doing the Rocky theme.
Okay.
Where I can kind of juggle all the parts, I can get all the, that's kind of complete.
Right.
You know, I mean, you can embellish it with other stuff and you put drums and bass, but it sort of makes sense as it is. Where the Dio record, I was doing much more like, you know, okay, play the rhythms, now overdub the melody, and, you know, so for live, I'd have to hire more people, and I don't know if I can afford that.
Paul, you can reach your thumb so far back when you play that F with your thumb.
Well, you've got my favorite poster over here, the Hendrix poster, and that's like,
yeah,
you know, it's I can go on long, unpleasant rants.
Talk about the thumb, about how important it is to be able to use your thumb with playing.
It's not necessarily even that the thumb is doing anything. I mean, sometimes it does.
Yeah.
It's more an indication of what your wrist is doing. And for me, like, as a kid, even like really early on, the thing that to me was like the business card of cool guitar, as much as I said, like, I want to impress the grandpas with classical stuff, the thing I wanted, deep in my heart, was to be able to do, like, you know, rock steady. You have that Mick Ralph's rock steady vibrato. Or, you know, Jimmy Page, and all the Ace Frehley stuff, you know. And to do that, the wrist is just a bigger body part than the finger joints. And, like, I don't know, kind of post 85, you know, the guitar players started and they started trying to use the joints.
Doesn't work.
And some people could do it.
Yeah.
But it's such a weaker body part that, you know, and so even like the other stuff gets involved. Like, I found that my elbow will come out from my body if I have to do like a big, you know, my elbow will be out here because I want to put my wrist where it can push, and you got to, you know, ferocious calluses. To get, or even, you know, Lenny Kravitz. And again, it helps having light strings and high action. So, like, my test for a guitar setup is I have to be able to play in G and grab that, because a lot of times the action gets low there.
Yeah.
And then you can't grab the string. So, as shreddy as my reputation is, like, the first thing I do with any guitar, like, just pick it up and go, can I go? And if that works in G, then the guitar's set up all right.
Okay, what's hard for you to play?
Well, any finger-picking stuff. And actually,
give me some single note things that are hard to play.
A lot of my picking comes from stuff that I can't do otherwise.
Okay.
Like, there's that Eric Johnson thing that he does with hybrid picking.
Yep.
That, and, you know, I've never learned a hybrid pick.
Okay.
So I tried to struggle through with just the pick.
Yeah.
And I can't do it as fast or as well, but it you know, it toughened me up.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to put that song in the set list. You know, leave that to the professionals. But I spent some time, you know. So, and to be able, now watch my whole shoulders involved.
Yeah.
And that in turn allowed me to start doing stuff where I would skip around. Let me see, like. So that sort of thing, we're doing these big, you know, from there to there.
I noticed that you were warming up just before we started, and you were doing all practicing upstrokes.
Yeah. Well,
why do you do that?
First 2 years that I played guitar, I only did upstrokes.
Okay.
Just because I didn't know any better, and I find that if I really want to warm up the picking muscles,
Yep.
I'll do a bar of shuffle.
Okay.
And then I'll do a bar of triplet. And I keep it all muted, so I'm using the side of the hand on there. And I'll just make sure that it's clean, shuffle, 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 triple, 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 triple. And then try to make it, I didn't make it there, but I will this time, to the next string. So. I missed it because I'm nervous, but normally I get it. And if I don't get it, slow it down, It's real exercising. Until you get it. And it's interesting to see where your mind goes because when you slow down, you have enough time to think it through. Like, what do I have to do to get it right? And it's that little shoulder pull.
Yeah.
I've got because that brings me from one string to the next string to the next string. And if it's slow enough, I can actually handle that. And then, nobody's looking, I can get it faster.
Do you start some runs with upstrokes, or you consciously start, or just wherever it happens? Or do you tend to pick on the beat?
Here's the big discovery.
Yeah.
Is that an upstroke or a downstroke changes sort of the wrist angle, which changes the mute. And when we play a fire-breathing guitar sound,
right?
Controlling the noise is really important. So a lot of times the upstroke isn't because it's efficient or because of anything other than you're just trying to keep the noise, and the upstroke keeps the noise together. So, for example, I did a lesson yesterday for my school where I took 4 notes, and I said, okay, that's picking them. The E minor, first 4 notes, or actually that'd be Dorian, because we got my major 6.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of cool. It sounds all right. Real staccato and even and same. But if I did that with, where I'm picking the first 2 with an up, down, and then 2 pull-offs, that I can really get. And get it so much faster that I can actually start getting this cool syncopation. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's easy. I can close my eyes and enjoy it. With this one, I'm just right on the edge of messing that up.
Yeah.
So I really pay attention to that because I like stuff that's easy and I don't have to worry about it. But the thing with upstrokes is here's one that's really a big part of my playing is to be able to do 5 notes in a scale. I'm really actually similar to the one I did, just add the G string. But you got to get across 3 strings quickly. So like that. And I go up, or was it up? I don't even know what the B string is. That'd probably be up, down, down, up, down, down,
yes.
up, down, down. And then be able to, turn it around. And that I can do all day. I could have Sid Vicious strap length, and it's still going to work. So that's those are the keepers. Just reading an interview with Wolfgang Van Halen, he asked Eddie, his dad, to give him some lessons, and his dad was like, I don't know what I'm doing, which is to me makes complete sense. The thing that is you're listening hard and feeling hard, and that's what. And everything else just follows that. And if it works, you keep it. If it doesn't work, you throw it away. And so you never really have to know what you're doing.
Is there a someone's solo that you learned that was the aha solo, where you learned?
Well, rarely could I make it through a whole solo. So I would get bits and pieces. I think, there's maybe 2 solos that I remember the entire thing.
Okay.
From being a kid. One is Journey. The instrumental song called Majestic, which started off with this crazy chord. But the solo is this E major thing, 1, 2, 3, 4. the end, but it's still like that feels so good to play that.
Neil is amazing. His melodic sense.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
His vibrato, everything about it. What would be something else? I mean, did you learn Hendrix solos, Page solos, anything, or just little parts of them, and then you would incorporate them into your playing?
Well, some of them are, like another one that comes to mind, a lot of Jimmy Page.
Okay.
But I wouldn't get it right because I was 11.
Yeah.
But I remember trying to like the... And then... It had like a little... It's sort of almost Van Halen-ish pull-off thing in there. And I don't remember it exactly how it went now, but I remember learning that. Or Michael Schenker from UFO, Only You Can Rock Me. I can't remember. That was a great one. You know, again, like especially with Van Halen, there'd be little bits because I couldn't figure out all of it. But I mean, the thing with Eddie was I remember, of course, hearing Eruption. Yeah. And my uncle, who's really a great guitar player, had I saw him play an Eruption before I heard Eddie. Okay. Because my uncle had the album. Okay. All right. And so he was doing the tapping stuff, and I just thought that was something my uncle did. So when I heard the Van Halen album, right, I was like, oh, that's the thing Jimmy was doing. But the thing that I couldn't figure out was the kind of like, I call them snarly dog, like it's like rah, 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 when Eddie's doing that. I was like, what is going on there? And so I was like 12, and I went to my guitar teacher and played him that, and he didn't know exactly, but he said, well, I think it's, and that got like the 3-note per string thing, and the being able to do a trill between like the pinky and another finger. Yeah. And if I have like a technical superpower, it's being able to do like the third finger and the pinky trill. Yeah. Or I mean the second finger too, because Eddie would mostly do that one. And then it's fine, but if you want to get like other shapes, and of course you stretch that out, you get like a Well, let me do a 7th one. I haven't played this in a while. I got to remember it. There we go. That's ferocious. That's cool. Those came from learning the snarly dog lick. The snarly dog lick. But also, like I was realizing the other day, because when I teach my students, those aren't good starting points. No. And although a lot of people want to dive right into that, but when I teach, I almost always have something that has a strong rhythmic structure to it. And I realized I was doing a lesson last night, and I realized that I stole the rhythm from my uncle. And what was his notes? I'm trying to think how he must have fingered it. Something like that. But the syncopation of it, and I came, I didn't realize that I stole it at first, because I came with like, was it? I was doing like something like that. But then I realized it's basically a faster version of the beautiful people, the beautiful people. And if you just speed it up, and that's the stuff that like, the reason I came up with it was because we every night when I mess up a solo in this live set, I try to figure out what went wrong. And so one of the songs is like this real medium tempo, groove. You know, it's like, or like 1 and 2 and buckle my shoe. And I got 8 bars. It was short, you know. And so if I do 16th notes or even like, you know, the good times, bad times, that might be all right. But 8th notes are kind of too slow. You know, but if I went, you know, that's cool. And, you know, I just got to figure out what, you know, but then what are the notes, you know. And then that, like, rhythmically, I've got something going on then. And then, to me, that's the other thing I'll practice. Like, okay, well, now I've got that rhythm. What notes can I put in its place?
I notice that you play vertically up one string a lot.
Yeah.
And is that something that you practiced a lot doing, or would you take groupings of 2 strings or 3 strings and just work your scales like that?
Well, every shape on the fretboard will have rhythms living inside of it. So if you've got a rhythm going on and it's working in that shape, I think that's why I move it up, because it's like, well, it's going to work, you know. You know, if I suddenly go, okay, well then now, you know, try to move it like vertically, the shape gets all messed up. I mean, maybe I'll get lucky and it'll work, but if I just move it up, you know, harmonize it inside the scale, you know. You know, then I kind of work. And yeah, so I try to be aware, because, I mean, just like that Dio thing, you know, depending on how it's fingered, you know, it either works or it doesn't. And I mean, I'll give you a really good example of this. One of my favorite drum licks is Stairway to Heaven. You know, you're going, and Bonham goes, which, you know, it's the main syncopation is like that.
Yeah.
And so, but I got to squeeze in. And that's not, I call time squeeze. Because as long as I get the main note that I'm emphasizing on the beat I want, then everything's cool. Everything else you can just squeeze in. So the rest of it, you know, if I played that like, that's not going to be, I mean, it would work, but it's not the effect I'm going for. But if I just go, get that in the right spot, and then squeeze in the other stuff, then it's bitching, and then you can do other notes. But it's got to be the same architecture in terms of numbers of notes on a string. There's got to be 1 note on a string, then 3 notes on a string, and then 1 note on a string. And anything that's that architecture, if I go 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, that'll work. Or, you know, but if I suddenly do 2 notes per string, the rhythms change. So much of the fingering has to do with the rhythm that's living inside of it.
When you're teaching kids or any student, what do you teach them? Scales, arpeggios? Like, what is your system that you like to do with somebody? If somebody already knows how to play.
I'll give you an example. Would be to take like a straight pentatonic and do a pattern where you go. So you play the 1 note twice. And then you play the lower note, and then you take it, and then you take advantage of the fact that you can squeeze in 1 pull off when you have all the notes on 1 string. So you pick that pull off. You can't do that for the next one.
No,
unless you go, you know. That's the advantage there. You can always do it the same.
Right.
But if you're willing to, like, you know, you go through something a little bit painful, but that'll benefit in the end, you do it. And then I'll tell them, like, pay attention to the tone. Like right there, I was using a little bit of that Michael Schenker. And is it going to be a triplet or a 16th note? Because it's a 3-note phrase, but it might be cool to put that 3-note phrase as a 16th note. And you have to be able to connect it to stuff. Like, you know, it's just sitting there in the air, but, you know, do you have a beginning and an end? How do you get out of it? And, get your foot stomping so you can feel it. But, and I'll show you one more. there's a lick that's, I call it the important lick because it's so important. Not just for guitar players, but singers do this. And it's the boom boom. Just that, and there's like 3 different ways to finger it. Okay. So you got to kind of, that's like your personal, you got to sort out, well, how am I going to finger it? Because Gary Moore would do it 2 fingers. I would do it 3 fingers. You know, Tom Scholz might do it because he uses the pinky, you know, so there's like 3 different ways to do it. But like yesterday I gave a lesson to a new student and it was, I'm trying to remember the phrase, like, it was better than that. I had a cooler phrase, but it was basically, you know, it was this thing where there's a lot of opportunities for rhythm, vibrato, tone differences, and getting the most important lick in the world. Because, you know, they have a drink on me. And just every time you hear a singer, they're always, you know, they're doing that everywhere. It's just so ubiquitous in anything that has any blues to it, and know it every octave. And, you know, just you got to have that one wired. That and It's Your Thing. Now, It's Your Thing is the national anthem, but bluesified.
Okay.
Because you know, it's an F, unfortunately. Sorry, guitar players.
Yeah.
But you know, that's the national anthem, right?
Right.
But It's Your Thing is the same notes, but you have short, bent, and vibrato. And if you leave those out, now there's nothing wrong with it. I like the national anthem too.
Sure.
I wouldn't mess with it. But you know, you want to have, you don't want to lose It's Your Thing, you know. And then the best part, that I just want that to be the most. I want to be fluent with that. I can't tell you. That just turns me on so much. And so when I find something like that, it's like, okay, I got to know that in every key. I got to be able to just, you know, get that with no thinking. And I can't yet because I learned that like 3 days ago.
Right. Paul, the only other person that played with the same rig was Eric Johnson when he was here.
Well, there might be one difference. I've got the Makita drill on top,
Okay.
which almost go to Eric Johnson levels of arcane gear detail. I've got thin picks. They have to be thin or they get tangled up. 4 of them now. I used 3 in the 80s, but 4 is one faster.
Right.
It's got to be in forward mode and high speed, and you got to make sure to mute all the strings except the one you're playing, and you just, you know, play some single notes. And the audience smiles and does that. One of the things that I try to do also is to do shuffles. Because for my technique, one of the most important things was this shuffle lick that I learned when I was a kid, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason that's important, because you know it's a shuffle, that sounds cool, but the low note is muted back here with a downstroke. The upstroke pulls it away. So I get a contrast between It's not all the same. That's the danger of scale playing, is like everything ends up being the same.
Right.
And so it just sounds same. So that feels good. You know, it's got some life to it. Maybe the faster it goes, the more it'll kind of get sameified. But you know, that, and then the other thing, short and long. And this is so much fun to just tell yourself, like, play some short notes and then don't change it, play some long notes, and listen to yourself as you do it. And, you know, if you play something good, play it again, but change something. So if I'm playing that thing and I want to play some long notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's some short notes. so all my brain was
Beautiful.
thinking was like, play the notes that work, but be real aware of short and long. I mean, it's, to use fancy words, legato and staccato. But whenever it gets the same, it's it's not as much fun.
Your control on your bends is so good. Your half-step bends, your full-step bends, everything, and your vibrato, just beautiful.
Well, thank you. And it better because I yell at everybody. It's funny, I have a song called Vibrato, which I wrote to kind of challenge my students, because I'm speaking of checklists, like in Japan. I made the checklist of all stuff that my students either don't want to do or struggle to do, and then stuff that I like. So first of all, I thought, okay, B flat. That's a horrible guitar key. Nobody wants to play B flat. Then make it a shuffle. So boom, that's my groove. Then I thought, don't start it on one. Start it on the and and two on the second bar. So it'd be a 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2. And have a stop. Guitar players don't like to stop. And then at the end, have that Mick Ralph's rock steady note, where it's a bend with vibrato on the top.
Yeah.
So that's like, all the stuff that, that the scale practitioners never get around to. Actually, there's one more thing the scale practitioners don't get around to, but that's a totally different style. But that, and I wrote the solo.
Wait, what is the other thing that they don't get around to?
Arpeggiating chords, doing like, where's my Leslie, that don't come in, the first thing my guitar teacher thought of.
Love that.
I played a minor seventh instead of a regular minor. There we go. That's better. So a lot of players just, and to me it's so easy. You just hold down the chord arpeggiate it. And then in the rock version, you get the ain't talking. To be able to arpeggiate. And it just sounds so nice. I mean, when we're on the Mr. Big set, we have a song, I don't even know what key it's in, but maybe it's in B. And there's a modulation, and I have to play like. And I just love that.
Beautiful.
That's one of my favorites. I'd much rather play that than the Whittly Whittly solo, although I like those two, if I get them right.
How much do you have your students play blues and things like that, like forms of tunes?
Yeah.
And do you tell them that that's like a really important thing to do?
Well, they're the customer.
Yeah.
So if they don't want to play blues, I won't push
What do
it.
people come to you for typically?
Well, I have a lot of students, so all kinds of things. And some of them, I'm always happy when they want to play blues because I'm excited about it, so I get to share my hobby. And when I do, it's a lot of it, like the big discovery to me, because, as a guitar player, you learn, it's like, okay, chew on that, put some bend, you get something. But the thing that was the biggest surprise to me was learning songs that are major blues, which it's not really Ionian, it's based on seventh chord.
Yeah.
But to be able to play a convincing major blues scale over the one chord, where you're really emphasizing that major third, And then when you get to the four chord, that's where you play your minor of the global key. And maybe if you're lucky, you can throw in that third that's not in there, but it should be. And so to be able to emphasize, and to me the best thing about it is if you can sing along with it, then you really know it. If you go. like from B.B. King. He plays that like 3 times in this one YouTube video. Thank you, Billy Gibbons.
Don't you think that BB actually plays some more complex licks than people realize?
Oh, man.
He really does.
Well, he had piano players and horn players in his band, so I imagine they're like, during sound check, he's probably going, show me that thing you did. You know? Or, I mean, I'm just guessing. Yeah, he could have been just good, too.
Yeah.
Pretty good possibility of that.
How important is it to know modes? Do you think that's an important thing?
Well, I've got the cure for modes.
Yep.
Because modes most of the time, have too many notes. And like, imagine if you got a target and you got your bow and arrow or shooting device, whatever it is, and you just like spin in a circle and you shoot everyone, and then you would come around, hit the target, and then but like the other 7 times, you're missing the target. So that's my metaphor. So here's what happens: is a lot of times in the mode, if you play all the notes, it's just not harmonically focused.
Right.
And so I'm going to show you a new scale I discovered. I call it soft Phrygian.
Okay.
And I learned it because I was tired of not knowing what I was doing in songs that had a minor 5 chord.
Okay.
I'll give you a couple examples. Robin Trower. A song called I Can't Wait Much Longer. Mm-hmm. God, I hear the live album is so good. So there's your minor 1 chord. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And then your minor 5 chord. Now it's unusual. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't sound unusual because it works, but normally the 5 chords it's dominant chord. Another one that's got it, if you're willing to go with Little Wing being an E, is eventually
Right.
And that was the thing. It's like that would come and I'd be like, I never quite, it was over quick. So even if I just sort of went, just played a lick, it was never too bad, but it was never too good either. And I thought, I got to figure out. So I got to sit down and figure out what should I play? And I'm going to give you the answer. It's the triad plus the crazy train plus the 7. So basically the triad, the 6 and the 7. Minor 6 and minor 7. So and it sounds here's the
it's soft Phrygian because you don't have the flat 2, right?
There's no you don't want any kind of ninth or and no second.
Right.
You don't want that one. And they both suck.
Right.
So and that's really good I mean I have no theory answer. It's just I hear it and I go, that sucks. That sucks too. Don't play those. A mode doesn't need all the notes. It's better with no second. So anyway, here's the easy fingering for it, because you play your Freebird, in those notes, and then when you go to the 5, all you do is take your top part, move it up 2 frets, keep the other part the same. So you got to go back down, and add 1 more note to make it. And those are the 5 magic notes. Add any more and it weakens it. And you can bend it. So, beautiful. And that's such a beautiful one. It's in Little Wing. It's also Christina Aguilera. What is it? I want to thank you for giving me time to be What a Girl Wants. I don't know what key it's in, but the 1 chord in minor, and then I want to thank you for giving me time to breathe, like a rocket waiting so patiently. And then, but I mean, it goes by so quick that, and that's the other thing about modes, is that if the chords change quick, it's not really a mode. You have to be there a while. You're not going to move your furniture. Like if you go to a restaurant, you haven't moved. But if you go live in a city for 6 months, then okay, then it's a mode.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like when you even stay with heaven, I mean, it's almost Lydian because you actually are there a while.
Yeah.
Man.
And that's why Jimmy throws in the F too on that chord. He plays it, I think, 5 times in the solo. He plays that F in there.
You're long enough you can bring a backpack.
Right.
He's
like hanging out there for a minute.
But if it's just a bar long, that's not a mode. It's got to be like a long. You have to spend some time there, make it your home.
You vocalize all the time when you're playing. I notice that. At least now you do.
Yeah. Well, it keeps you honest. But plus, I'm a frustrated singer. I started off wanting to be a singer. Because the records that got me excited were Beatles and Elton John. And then I thought, well, I should play something. So I thought, should it be guitar or piano or drums? I don't really care. I just want to sing. And but my voice is not an instrument that I'm particularly happy with. It has more limitations than I would like. So the guitar allows me to hit high notes. I can have a sore throat and everything's still there. And the other thing is, the more I practice, the better I get. And if I practice vocals, I get worn out, and I just end up with hoarse. And it's I mean, maybe the calluses will get, but even the calluses, they'll grow back and get better over time. So that's what's it's so satisfying to get a melody, just get deep into it. I mean, again with slide, like. One of the ones I was working on was and that money, that's a big move to get that and then back up. And just to try to get that locked together. And just be able to sing, in a way, I don't feel that I really know anything unless I can sing it. So, for example, like that, you and I both discovered that Oscar Peterson, Dick Cavett thing.
Right.
Where he's demonstrating. I heard that, I was like, I got to know that lick. Maybe, I don't know if I can get all of it, but I'll get a part. And I did. I don't know what key it's in, but I always make it an A. Uh-huh. And so if you're playing along in A, just to get it in your ear. And the Oscar Peterson lick, it's not as fast as him, but something like that. Yeah? And I don't feel that I know that unless I can go. And the beginning of it's a flat 9. That's the first note. Which, if you emphasize it, that's not really what you would go for. No, but the way it fits in context.
He's using it as a leading tone.
Yeah, and I love playing it fast and then slowing it down to kind of to get the audience used to it, so they're finally okay with something that normally they wouldn't be okay with. So if you're going like, and at that point, it's fine.
Right, they're used to it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, right on, I agree. I have a secret fantasy of auditioning for the Black Crowes.
Okay.
Because from working on the blues stuff, I always think could I really do it on a professional level? Could I join a band and do not overplay, and have whatever and make it actually be accepted by the real cats, and then I play And I know they've just failed the audition.
No,
but you're not going to get in that band.
But the blues part of it is amazing. You sound killer on that.
Well, thank you. That's what I've been working on. That's my hobby. I'm hoping someday I'll get in the club.
So, how important is teaching? You like to teach, I can tell.
Well, of course, I would say I get to sit in the teacher's chair.
Yeah.
Which is generous of the student, but really, it's just people talking about music together.
Yeah.
And it's hopefully I've had enough experience where I can come up with a solution to a problem or just an idea that keeps them excited about playing. And one of the things I'll keep in mind is I want them to be happy, but I also want myself to be happy. So often I'll show them two things, and I'll say like, well, this is what you asked for, so I'll do my best to show you how to untangle it. But at the same time, I would love if you played this, and you know, just because I think it's going to help, and I'd love to hear it. And so, you know, and if I can combine both of those in one phrase, all the better. And the other thing I do is, like a lot of times when I'm getting ready for a tour, maybe I'll have a bass player that doesn't live in town. Mm-hmm. And so I've got to explain to them some parts that might be hard to get by ear. And so I'll make them basically an instructional video for the bass part. And you know, this is a video for a professional. The person does not need help technically.
Right. I'm
just teaching them the song. And I'll keep that in mind. I'll go like, you know, because that allows me to keep a level of respect. You know, treat them like they're a pro, you know, and just teach them the song. And it also, I ask them to do that back to me. Because a lot of times, what guitar players will play, and it's like, oh, I got the notes right, but the rhythm's all over the place. And I say, teach it to me like I'm a band member, like I'm the drummer. You're trying to teach me how the song goes. And that takes the nervousness away. And one of the tricks is I'll pretend that they're Robin Trower.
Okay.
Because I can get all, you know, I can get like too high energy and too excited. And I'll go like, if I was making a video for Robin Trower, I would want to cool down because he's cool. And I'd want to be like, you know, okay, well, you know, this is how it goes. And you know, slow down my manic pace a little bit. And I often imagine that Robin is at the soundboard when I'm doing a solo and go like, if I start doing the whittly stuff, you know, that's going to put a frown on his face. I got to play something, you know, something nice, you know, because one of my favorite Robin Trower things is slow, like, goes 1, 2, 3. It feels, and you know, you could have 10 different guitar players play that. They're all going to sound different. And you know, and of course, it depends if they like that kind of style. If they spent some time with that, you know, slow, controlled bends. But that's, you know, that Burt Bacharach and Yngwie. There's my style.
Love it, love it, Paul. I really appreciate you coming in today. It's so great to meet you in person. I know we've spoken before, and just an honor to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and I'll be back for more therapy later.
Awesome. I'd like to once again thank Paul for being my guest today. Remember, hit the like button, leave a comment, and hit subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.